Today, two men, two judges of the Delhi High Court created history, overturning a law that's 150 years old, and what many believe is an archaic law that smacks of the worst form of discrimination. From today, it's legal to be gay. The historic judgment quotes the Constitution extensively to make Section 377 bad in law. The judgment is crucial because our political leaders have shown, many say, the lowest level of dithering and hypocrisy on this issue. Now, they may soon be irrelevant.
What are you doing, man?
They no longer have to remain in the closet. Gays, lesbians and transgenders celebrating a watershed moment, a validation of their life and their right to dignity. The Delhi High Court today ruled that consensual sex among gay adults is legal and therefore not punishable under Section 377 of the Indian Penal Code. The judges quoted Jawaharlal Nehru's speech in the Constituent Assembly, in which he said equality before the law meant inclusiveness. The order says, and I quote, "Inclusiveness, the underlying theme of Indian Constitution, it's a value deeply ingrained in Indian society. Those perceived by the majority as deviants or different are not on that score excluded or ostracized." This was the spirit behind the resolution of which Nehru spoke so passionately. So Section 377 will only apply in rape cases.
It's been quite a journey over 8 years. It has not been easy, it has not been smooth, and for most of this time we never dared to dream that we would win. So yeah, we are all feeling very emotional today.
Sources tell NDTV that a cautious government may not contest the verdict just yet and blame the court if protests intensify.
We need to examine the details of it.
That we should amend this and not consider them as criminals. At the same time, we cannot afford to endorse homosexual behavior.
Perhaps it's appropriate to wear pink at the Delhi High Court today. The court invoked Nehru and the Constitution to rule that gay sex is not illegal, at least not in Delhi. In the capital, for NDTV, Snetra Chaudhary.
As I said, our political leaders are being seen to be more than normally hypocritical on the issue of legalizing gay people. Most leaders tell us privately that yes, it is wrong to discriminate against gays. And yes, gay sex of course should be legal. That's all in private. But on camera and on record, political considerations suddenly seem to take over. Instead of acting as our leaders and leading the country, our politicians are now being accused of running scared and hiding behind fear of ignorance and conservatism of the silent majority.
From the party to the politics, the people who make the rules trying to walk a fine line on this rather politically sensitive issue. Those in power were predictably vague, not wanting to take a firm stand.
One goes through the contents of the judgment, is not fair for me to comment on.
Some were open in their opposition.
देखिए हम होमोसेक्सुअलिटी जो है उसके समर्थन में हम व्यक्तिगत रूप से नहीं हैं।
कि समलैंगिकता एक मनोविकार है, ये अप्राकृतिक है।
आज़ादी के नाम पर और बुनियादी हुकूक के नाम पर इस तरह का फैसला आना ये अफसोसनाक है।
The younger lot of MPs were a little more brave and even found support from a few old-timers.
What is the majority of the opinion? That has to be taken into account.
I think we should just let them be. Let's not get into each other's. We are all Indians. We have to learn to live and cope with what there is. I mean, at the same time, I think your values are very important.
There's no reason why that kind of law should continue to be in the 21st century.
After the Delhi High Court ruling, the debate to scrap Section 377 of the Indian Penal Code has gained momentum. But not everyone within the government is in favor of repealing 377. Reason? There's immense pressure from religious groups and leaders to maintain status quo, and that's the reason why the government is treading on this issue rather cautiously. In New Delhi, Sandeep Phukan, NDTV.
Well, it's been a day of high emotion for the gay people across the country, many of whom have been harassed and bullied by authorities who use Section 377. There are many, many people who have lived in the shadow of fear for 20 years or more, who say that it's only now that they feel genuinely free.
I finally say that, okay, I'm not ashamed to be gay. A kind of shrouding of shame that is changed.
At his home in suburban Mumbai, filmmaker Sridhar Rangayan celebrates this moment of freedom. Sridhar came out of the closet 20 years ago, but could never live openly. A leading gay rights advocate in Mumbai, he has spent the last 15 years campaigning for a change in Section 377.
Even if you're just standing on the railway station and you're kind of looking at somebody, you would actually be picked up. I don't have to bolt my door and be afraid. I can be as normal as any heterosexual person, you know.
While the Delhi High Court order is restricted to the capital, activists are hoping it will set a precedent in other cities.
The law has changed, but attitudes will take longer. The court verdict, many are hoping, will be a step in that direction. In Mumbai, Shai Venkatraman for NDTV.
And joining us now is Arvind Narayan, an author and gay rights activist. Thank you very much, Arvind, for joining us. What does it feel today?
I think a feeling of freedom, really. The fact that after 160 years, finally we have a law which had never been there, which is going. And I think more than that, a sense of pride in being an Indian and being a part of the history of this country. Because if you look at the judgment, what is so fascinating about the judgment is that the Justices Shah and Justice Muralidhar referred to both Dr. Ambedkar and Pandit Nehru.
In fact, the judgment relies a lot on the Constitution and uses the Constitution to reinforce the fact that this is Section 377 is bad in law and parts of it, right?
Yeah.
That makes it very much stronger. Could you explain that?
It makes it much stronger. It makes it much stronger because when you refer to Dr. Ambedkar, one of the core opposition which is articulated very strongly before the court and is also being articulated in public very strongly, which is the idea of public morality. The idea that the majority of people feel badly about the judgment. They think that it will destroy society. So we should not have this. We should have this law in place. So the answer to that, what the judges come up with, is the idea that morality is based on the Constitution. Morality derives from the Constitution. It's not a popular morality. It's not a people's morality. It's a morality based on the Constitution. And they get that idea from Dr. Ambedkar, because Dr. Ambedkar once again is very conscious of the fact that the majority morality, which could be upper caste morality, discriminates against the Dalit community.
Right.
So it's really that idea which is at the core of the decriminalization.
Can't be subjected to the dictatorship of the majority.
Yes.
Let's bring in Dr. Abraham Mathias. He's Vice Chairman of the State Minority Commission, who joins us from Mumbai. Thank you, Dr. Mathias, for joining us. Do you welcome this law? What's your reaction to this judgment?
See, my reaction is I have always said that they should not be criminalized, but I don't subscribe to it and I don't endorse it, because I believe a man and woman's relationship is for procreation, and a gay relationship or a lesbian relationship does not create there's no procreation. But so far, as long as two consenting adults were getting into this act, I believe there should not have been this act of 377. But I don't endorse it and I don't subscribe to it, for sure.
I don't quite, you seem to be sitting on the fence. You're the Vice Chairman of the State Minority Commission. This is protecting a minority. How can you sit on the fence like this?
No, I'm not sitting on the fence. What I'm trying to say is, this judgment is good for these people who are into this kind of relationship, but I'm talking on the moral grounds. I am General Secretary. I was called in as General Secretary of the All India Christian Council today, and I believe very firmly that there should not be, see, now what happens is, after this, you'll have a lot of the ad companies, media companies, you're trying to promote certain products showing
now, sir, just a second,
that should be bad.
Just a second, I don't think you should start going on to the media and ad companies. Let's just talk about the morality. You say you're against it morally. Who are you, sir? Who are you to say it's morally wrong for somebody else to do something? You can do what you like, right? Why should you impose your views on anybody else?
See, because I believe that I've come from creation. I have not come from evolution. And God created man, Adam and Eve, and not Adam and Steve. Therefore, I believe it's morally wrong, because man and woman were created by God for procreation. These kind of relations are actually useless. It doesn't end up anywhere.
So
therefore,
I just wonder, are you in the 21st century, or
I'm very much in the 21st century? No, see, it is, as I said, it's morally wrong and I still stand by that. But I believe that if two consenting adults, they should not be criminalized, but we should not go into much into it and let them, what do you say, if they got this relief, but it should not be seen that it is accepted morally by society.
Right, sir. Can I just bring in Arvind here? This is such a common argument, and it's not just religious. It's, I mean, there is a kind of conservative backlash against this kind of a law. How do you react to that?
Once again, I think one of the core answers we have to the entire thing is every person is entitled to an opinion, and we have no problems with that. Obviously, religious leaders might have very different opinions. Some people will support it, and there are people who gain Christian, gain Muslim, and I think it would be really nice to hear those voices. I'm a little tired of hearing the voices of the conservative forces within religion, portraying religion as uniformly homophobic and uniformly discriminatory towards lesbians and gay people. But actually, there are religious leaders who embrace the spirit of religion as tolerance and acceptance of all of human beings, right, because they're human beings.
Dr. Mathai, what happened to tolerance? You're sounding fairly intolerant right now. I thought your religion highlights tolerance.
That's exactly what I said. Yeah, being tolerant itself, I accept the judgment of the High Court, and I believe that two consenting males or females in the act should not be treated as criminals. However, it cannot be accepted morally, is what I'm trying to say.
Right. So it's a very. Do you understand it cannot be accepted morally?
I think, see, once again, the problem I have, I think he's making one important concession, which is the fact that if he believes in something, it cannot become the law which governs all communities, right, and all people in the country.
So he will live by the law that's been enacted today.
I think the more important point is within the Christian faith, where people who gain Christian and people commit suicide because of the entire issue of trauma and guilt around the entire issue. So that's why the question of religion should be more open-minded, should be more Catholic, should be more liberal, and should be more accepting towards people who could be gay and Christian. And that's the fundamental mistake which our friends are making, wherein they're not embracing the true spirit of, I think, Jesus Christ.
Right. I do have to ask you this, Dr. Mathai, that you say it's morally wrong, but the church will not ostracize gay people who now can feel free under this new law.
I'm not sure on the stand of the church after this High Court verdict. That is yet to be seen, but I have only voiced my personal opinion,
right,
and saying that this kind of criminalization of the act was not needed all this while.
But you yourself and your church will not ostracize gay people, right?
No, we will not ostracize. Right. We will not ostracize them. I would not want them to be ostracized.
Right. I think that's an important point you're making. I think, as you said, there is a concession there that might be his personal view, but it doesn't mean that it's the law of the land. So now, does this apply, because it's Delhi High Court, does it apply to the whole country yet?
Our understanding of the law on the point is if the High Court comes out with an interpretation of a central statute and there's no opinion to the contrary expressed by any other High Court, then right, it is the law of the land. It applies throughout the country, throughout the land of India.
Right. And one more last point actually before we wrap on this. The judges actually said now you can read down 377. So there's no real need, they implied, for Parliament to take up 377 and strike it down, because this law kind of nullifies this aspect of it. Is that right?
See, that's the constitutional design, because in effect we know that Parliament is not the most competent authority to protect within quotes unpopular minorities. So the judges have a role
Parliament
to protect.
Is not the most competent place to protect unpopular minorities. Good point.
So that's why the judges play the role of being an anti-majoritarian institution where they
right,
protect the rights of unpopular minorities by protecting and defending the constitutional rights.
Right.
So in a sense, I think we have achieved what we want through the judiciary and not
right,
through Parliament.
And maybe the politicians will also not try and raise this in Parliament and try and overturn the law. They don't need to. Right?
If our present politicians have the spirit of both Dr. Ambedkar and Mr. Nehru, yes, and think of it in terms of the spirit of equality, right, then they would not raise it.
Right, Arvind, thank you. And Dr. Mathai, thank you very much for joining us. Thank you very much. And congratulations on your struggle.